Hello everybody, welcome to a brand new, long-awaited, much anticipated, hotly anticipated I might even say. Because as soon as we don't do one of these for a few weeks, people are like, guys, what's up? Where's the show? I want the show.
Yeah.
Give me the show! And we are here giving you the show. How's it going, David?
It's going great. And yourself?
Yeah, pretty good. We were just having a discussion off the air that I have a mild sore throat. Fairly sure I don't have coronavirus. I don't really go out. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no lockdown, but my kid's like 7 months old now. And, yeah, I mean, that's why I don't really, I go to work, I come home, I go to bed. It's, coronavirus-free living. That's the way I want to describe it.
Same here. There was like, when all the quarantine stuff started here, I was like, I have to change absolutely nothing about my lifestyle.
Yeah.
Everything is the same. Exactly the same.
I mean, I'm sure someone's made this joke a million times, and so it's not even funny anymore, but I've been socially distancing my whole life.
Yeah, that was pretty much, my office. I mean, what did change is no one else is in my office building. And I mean, I was always in my office by myself.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But
and now
no
there's
neighbors.
just now I have the whole building to myself.
It's nice. It's nice. No one banging on walls, making noise.
Yeah, no, I can turn up the music as loud as I want, which I take advantage of now.
Yeah.
So.
Nice. Shall I do some housekeeping and then we can get into what are we talking about today? I see what we've learned this month. Are we recapping?
Yeah, we're gonna try it. We're gonna try it, and I mean, it's not gonna be like a. I mean, we'll intersperse with the normal stuff, of course, but we'll see if people like it. We'll do it maybe again, because the main point of this is try to come up with a way to churn out more episodes, less time, because the normal ones take a lot of time. And this one was pretty quick to put together because it was so fresh in my mind of everything we've sort of been working on the last month. So I didn't really need to do any. Normally, I'll have to go re-research things and look deep into that and this and that. And this, I just already had it kind of all in my head, and so just kind of put it down, bulleted it, and it was quicker. So.
Yeah, I'm keen to try it out, see what people think. As I say on my other channel, I always encourage people, if you don't like it, smash that dislike button. I mean, that's what it's there for, really. And
leave a review about what you think.
Yeah, or leave us a
review
positive
contest.
review. That's also welcome on iTunes or wherever you get or Apple Podcasts. It's been Apple Podcasts for like a year now, and I still always say iTunes because it's been iTunes my whole life. I'm stuck in the past, David. We are having a contest still going on. I think we're at like 800 reviews or something now. When we get to 1,000 reviews on iTunes, we are giving away a $1,000 Amazon gift card. So leave us a review for your chance to win. How exciting! That is quite exciting. I'd say that's a pretty good contest. I mean, it's not a lot of, I mean, I think the biggest Amazon gift voucher I ever have given was €500. And I've definitely not received anything so large. You can buy a lot of stuff on Amazon with $1,000.
Yeah.
You could buy you could buy one iPhone. I'm not even sure you could do that. I recently I tend to upgrade my phone like every 2 or 3 years, and it's about the time. And I'm like, when did these things start costing over $1,000? When did that happen? Yeah. Because it's really expensive.
I still always go with the sort of the mid-tier, which is always like the price to what you get ratio is always the sweet spot, that middle, it's like half the price, or you could pay like a lot more for,
That's true.
For like 10% better.
That's true. And it's not like I use all the features. I do want an iPhone because I prefer it, and I know you're Android? You must be Android.
Yeah. I go with like the Google always does they have their like the one I have right now is like the Pixel 3a, which is like half the price of their flagship one, but like, it is like 80% of the phone, and honestly, I don't even use, it's not like I do gaming on my phone or something. So
the thing is like, we've got a super power processor for games. And I'm like, okay, great. I've never gamed on my phone in my life.
Honestly, I was happy with my old phone. It was just the battery died, and it was one of those that you can't you have to unglue the screen to get it. And I talked to a guy about doing that. He's like, I do that. He's like, but 50-50, I'm going to break it. So he's like, and it was like, that's what he does, repairs phones and stuff. But he was like, and I can replace the battery. If I get the screen off without breaking it, I can do it. But otherwise. So.
Yeah, I mean, they're not designed to be repaired, are they? We should, let's do some stuff.
Let's talk about something interesting.
I've got other intro points. Do you want me to deal with these? I can deal with these now, or I can do them afterwards.
No, I'm actually interested just to, well, I mean, I thought we'd just tease them and not really talk about the whole thing right now. And then just if people want to, if
once
the
it's
people who aren't
tease,
interested can stick around.
I can't talk about what happens at top 10s yet, because is this still about
really?
the hack? You still curious about that?
Yeah.
To waylay the rumors, I'm not suing anyone. No one is suing me. That was the biggest thing when I said I can't talk about this. It's it's not anything so interesting, I'm afraid. It's just when this will be elaborated on in the future, and I will explain everything and why and all of that jazz. It's boring. It's truly boring, but I'm sure people still like how exciting.
People ask constantly in the comments.
I know. Also visual politic. I haven't been in the comments in way too long. People ask on today. I found out why I'm not presenting visual politic anymore.
Yep, totally.
Wow. I don't know. It's like a bunch of reasons, basically. I think like the main official reason is like careers evolve, you know? I do a lot of channels. I present a lot of things, and I wanted to focus on other things and this. And then more like less officially, I think about my career, and I don't know, I'm not that into politics, and I don't really want to be. I'm an entertainer, and I don't really have, my political opinions are boring. Anyway, not important. Let's move on. All
right.
You want to do a quick fact?
Yeah, well, I was gonna. I don't know. Did you like?
I skipped over the upcoming video promo
because the time this publishes.
Sorry, I was talking over you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. It cut out. So.
I was just saying I see the upcoming video promo, but I feel like we've been talking for 10 minutes, and people are going to be like, "Where's the facts?"
Yeah. All right.
Whatever.
Quick facts.
Okay, we are getting into some facts.
Have you ever felt like your friends are more popular, happier, and wealthier than you?
No.
Well,
no.
For the you're going to be an exception on a lot of this.
I'm the
because
best
you're
ever.
Actually the person, because I'll get into it and then we'll talk about it. So in the general case, though, you're probably right, and it's something called the Generalized friendship paradox. And so this was first proposed in 1991 by sociologist Scott L. Feld. And so he demonstrated this conclusively, that your friends on average will have more friends than you, and among these other things. So how does this work? And it's because most people have a very small number of friends, but there are
extremely
a small
popular,
percentage
David.
of people who have
many
friends. And these, by definition, you will be friends with one of these people. So on average, your friends in general will have more friends than you slightly. So that's kind of the gist of this. And this is why you are so this also accounts for like social media and stuff. So like most of your friends, on average, your friends will have more social media followers and stuff like this. And so like I have like these big accounts. And so I don't know anyone who has more except for one person that I know. You're like the top of the tree. And so you make this still true for me, is that your social media accounts are just way more. You blow it out and you blow the average for that. So then who would yours
but then
be like?
It's like, because of that, I mean, I think on average, I probably do have more than the vast majority of people, but it still sort of applies because it's like, but then again, I know people who have like millions of followers on Twitter or whatever. And so it's like,
that's true.
Okay. Because I don't know, because as you circulate in like the YouTube world or whatever, you're like, oh, well, I know you from this. And then you're naturally going to meet people who know lots of other people and are also popular because they're like internet famous or whatever.
Yeah.
So it does kind of apply.
And this, they've looked into this, like, it turns out, so we have Young Ho Yoom and from the University of Toulouse and Hang Hyung Jo of Aalto University. They also demonstrated mathematically this also accounts for people, your friends on average will be wealthier and happier than you. The really interesting thing about this, and it comes back to, so Dr. Nicholas Christakis of Harvard and Dr. James Fowler of the University of California, San Diego, they looked at this inspired by the friendship paradox. They wanted to see, so they did a study called Social Network Sensors for Early Detection of Contagious Outbreaks. So they contacted 319 random Harvard students and asked them to just name their friends. Mm-hmm. And so they named it, and then when they put it all together, they actually had a really good tree of friends, a friendship tree at Harvard. So they were all kind of, all these students would be interconnected in some way. And they found that the central nodes on this tree, so the people kind of highest up on these and had many, branches under, would actually get sick with the flu about 2 weeks before the average of the rest of the subjects, the non-central nodes. And they also, these popular students on average got sick a full 46 days before the flu epidemic peak. And so they were kind of proposing this as a way, if you track these central people, these really popular people, you can actually sort of predict when the peak flu season will be, or it doesn't matter what, it could be like COVID, like the same type of thing. They're the early warning signs, are these people who are at the center of the friendship.
I think to me this just sounds like God punishing people for being popular, to be honest. That's my opinion on that. It's definitely God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it totally makes sense why that would be the case. But yeah, it's kind of fascinating, I thought. So yeah, that's the friendship paradox on this thing. So all your friends are on average are more popular, happier.
It makes sense. It's kind of like, oh, okay, that's why I'm so sad. No, I don't know. Yeah, I don't feel like it's. Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. Are we doing the bit everyone waits for now?
Yeah, we are. Right. And this one is actually good because this is, one of
You can't say this one's actually good because then it implies all the other ones are not very good. This one's actually good because all the other stuff I'm just lying about.
This is one.
Raid Shadow Legends.
We approached them. They didn't approach us.
See, that's a better way of putting it. Today's sponsor is the absolute legends over at Backblaze. And so that's right. I mean, we both used this service independent, or maybe you recommended it to me. I think maybe you recommended it to me.
I don't remember. I had used it for years before we even did the YouTube channel, so yeah.
Probably then.
I've used it, yeah.
And it's a backup service, obviously. It's called Backblaze. Mm-hmm. And what you do is, I'm using it right now. That's probably a better way to explain it. So as we're recording this episode, I see that file being generated on my little waveform thing, and it's writing all of this information to my hard disk. And at that same time, Backblaze is like, yo, what's up, new data? And it's uploading it to its backup servers. I think they're in America? It's really far for it to go.
I'm sure they're all over the place. They probably have data centers.
That does make sense if it wouldn't send it all the way across the world. But wherever it is...
they do have their own... Instead of, unlike some who use, I think like Dropbox uses Amazon's service, I think, or at least they used to. I think Backblaze actually makes their own servers, which is one of the really cool things about them too. You can go read their, they put out these papers.
Yeah, they emailed them. It's on their newsletter. Read about.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because they're pushing the limits of like what you can do with data, and they have to make it cheap because of how cheap their thing is. It's like $5 a month or whatever, and so that
$6
they have to make
a
it
month.
really. Oh, is it $6 a month now?
It's still an absolute steal. It used to be $5 a month, but we got to get this right for the ad read because it's completely unlimited. And I once said in an ad read how much data I back up with Backblaze, and it's a lot because make a lot of videos, and they were like, please don't mention the amount you back up because you're not a typical use case. But the fact is, I don't think I get I don't get special treatments because this is an account. I don't get it for free. I pay for it and everything. And I've never had any issue. They've never been like, you're backing up a lot of data. Do you want to pay more? It's just been like, okay, I pay for it every year. It's like $60 a year or how much it is a year. And I'm like, great, thanks. It's perfect. And you never have to worry about it. It's just always there, just running in the background, taking that new data, putting it on their servers. And by the way, you know this. I feel like I'm explaining it to you, but I don't really need to. I'm explaining it to the audience. This is the most free-form ad read I think we've ever done. But what you do is if I'm touching some wood, but if you have like a hard disk failure or whatever, they're like, oh, okay, well, obviously we've got that all backed up. You want to download it? And you can be like, well, yeah, I've got an amazing internet connection. I do. But if you don't, you used to live in the middle of nowhere. You had like a satellite internet connection. Yeah. Which, I mean, sounds futuristic, but it also sucked. And
yeah, totally.
And you'd be like, no, I can't download like 4 terabytes or however much your failed disk is. I think now I've even got 8 terabyte disks. And they're just like, don't worry. Yeah. We'll mail one out to you with all of your data on. All safe and secure, of course, so no one in the post office can steal your data or all that nonsense. You just can plug it in and keep it and pay for it, or you just post it back to them once you're done. It's like, boom, perfect. What else do you need? Oh, I'll tell you what you do need. A 15-day free trial of Backblaze, which you can get from going to backblaze.com/brainfoodshow for that 15-day trial. Obviously, if you go through that link, Backblaze like, you know where we got that link from? those guys at the Brain Food Show. That's good. We like it when you do that. There's a link below. Check Back Blaze out. The bunch of legends. And let's get into the video. Return to today's podcast. Dude, I've said that so many times. It's like, let's get back to today's video. It's like, just autopilot. But we're doing a podcast, so let's get back to that. Totally.
All right. Have you ever wondered how much caffeine it would take to kill you? Or maybe some people just how much is too much to drink?
Every day.
Yeah, that's what we're going to cover now. So a caveat, of course, before we get into it, everybody has different tolerances for caffeine, for sometimes genetic, sometimes just because they drink a lot of coffee and their body's gotten used to it. So they have to drink more. So
hell yeah.
You can't. Yeah.
That's me.
You can't, of course, get like an exact figure. And of course, people aren't going around doing studies poisoning people with, just to see how much the average would be. But there are enough caffeine overdoses and stuff that people have done studies to look and see how much seems to be too much. And so the world record, the very upper limit, is a massive 100 grams. Some guy, of course, they don't name the people in the studies, but so 100 grams of caffeine ingested at once, and that's about 1,200 cups of coffee worth of caffeine.
Okay, yeah, I was going to think, like, I've taken those, Pro Plus. I don't know if you have those. They're like caffeine pills, popular with students. And those are pretty strong. And I feel like you take a couple of those and it's like, there's definitely some bite to them. And they're fairly tiny. Like 100 grams is like, that's like a king-size Mars bar worth of caffeine.
Yeah. But he lived, and it's the most ever, of course. So that's the extreme upper limit known, but it turns out much lesser doses, like 5 to 10 grams is generally, in a short period, of course, ingested, is going to put you at high risk of an adult dying of that. And
wait, the guy took 100 grams, survived, so he took 10 times that and lived.
Wow,
what a
20
hero.
times if you want to go with the 5. Yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, I mean, coffee, that's still, talking 5 to 10 grams is still a ton of coffee. So what's like 60 to 120 then, based on what I just said before. Yeah, so cups of coffee. So, but it turns out when you are, like you say, those pills or like diet pills often have just a ton of caffeine in them. And you can quite quickly ingest too many there. So for everyone, your standard cup of coffee has it's 40 to 150 milligrams of caffeine, depending on, there's a variety of brews and everything. So for some like Starbucks. So they have the Starbucks, the top end one they could find that they offer would be a Venti. It's a clover brewed coffee reserve roast, and it has 470 milligrams of caffeine in that one thing. And then the second highest one they had on their menu was the Blonde Cafe Americano Venti, of course. 340 milligrams.
Did I imagine it? Or did I see like an American Starbucks menu where they had like coffee with extra caffeine? Like they do coffees, but with double the amount of caffeine in them.
You're like asking the guy who like doesn't drink coffee or go to Starbucks. So
okay, hang on. Double caffeine. I'm. Do you ever have those things where you're like, I'm not sure if I dreamt that or whether I actually read it somewhere? Because if they don't, they should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would think that would be a thing.
Yeah, okay, it's totally a thing. Starbucks plus coffee pods. Oh, so this is like coffee pods.
Oh, okay. Oh, so
and
like
they contain extra caffeine. Oh wow. I swear it wasn't a dream. Maybe someone in the comments can say like, yeah. Starbucks double caffeinated coffee.
When you're talking that 470 milligrams, that's right at the. No, that's like right at the upper limit of what the general recommended. Don't do this regularly, more per day. Like that kind of 500 milligrams is like safe, but like as soon as you go beyond that, it's not really recommended regular every day. So, and then you're having not just every day, but that you're having it all in one go, one shot. So that's probably not the best.
Just looking down the notes here, Monster Energy, which is like a double-sized Red Bull essentially, that only contains 160 milligrams, and that's fair. That packs a punch, and that's way less. Yeah.
And so, you're talking like the 12-ounce Mountain Dew is one of the higher ones for sodas, and that's 55 milligrams, and Dr. Pepper has 61 in a 12-ounce. So that's like a standard can size for people who don't do ounces.
330 mils.
So
roughly.
Yeah. So Yeah, so of course, significantly lesser doses have caused people to die before, particularly when combined with like massive sleep deprivation and stuff. But there's also people who survived where you don't think they would, so like the 100-gram guy. But there's also, this one is kind of crazy. This one's the second highest concentration in a human that the person survived, and this one was a baby, a 1-year-old baby girl, and she ingested 3 grams of caffeine with her mother's diet pills that she swallowed. And she had massive complications in the immediate aftermath, heart issues and seizures and all that sort of stuff. But she survived the incident without seemingly any long-term damage. But yeah, due to her tiny size, she was the second highest concentration next to that, whoever that unnamed guy with the 100 grams was.
Dude. How does he get into that? He's like, I just found all this caffeine powder. I'm just going to munch all that.
Yeah. You assume he's got to be trying to kill himself, right? Like, I mean, how else would that happen? Because that's not
really,
you can't
really
like just ingest 100 grams without an accident. But yeah, that doesn't seem like a pleasant way to go though, because your whole body is doing. If people want to know, like I didn't include this because we got to be a little quicker with these ones in this podcast because we're covering a bunch. But if people want like the full video on this, they can go look at the video. We actually go into in depth like what exactly is going on in the body when the caffeine in these caffeine overdoses and why is it causing issues and things like that. But we're not going to cover that here because we have other stuff to cover. So moving on from there, quick fact. Let's see, for the world's longest lasting light bulb, it's a 60-watt carbon filament centennial light located in 4550 East Avenue, Livermore, California, made by the Shelby Electric Company and designed by one Adolphe Chalet. I think it was a French guy, if I remember correctly. And so how long has this light bulb been shining without burning out? Since 1901.
Wow.
Is this one. So, yeah.
Why do my bulbs
crazy.
only last short times? I mean, other than LEDs now, but what? You'd be replacing bulbs as a kid pretty often.
Yeah, totally. And this, the kind of cool thing about this is this design, this specific patent from Adolphe Chalet. Actually, there's tons of these bulbs still around. This one's just the oldest. There's quite a few of them that are still burning. They don't really give off nearly as much light as they used to, though, because over time, I guess they've worn out a bit. But so they give off this one in particular gives off about 5 watts, like the equivalent of if you had a 5-watt, the filament light bulbs. Standard today, even though it's using like 60 watts. So it's giving off a lot of heat now. But so it's like a really bright night light basically now, but it's still burning, and it's not been continuing. They have turned it off on occasion and moved it locations, which seems risky, but for the most part, it's stayed on.
Well, that's kind of cheating. Time. It's like, it's the longest continuously burning bulb, except when we had to turn it off.
Well, but there is just like power outages and like when it moved location. Otherwise, it's been on, and it's at the fire department there.
That's more Pleasanton. No. It'd be like, I've been awake for 33 years, except when I've been sleeping. I had to sleep.
If you slept,
I have been awake.
2 hours in that 30-some years, it's like, that's still pretty amazing.
No, you broke the chain. That's if I was Guinness World Records, I'd not be okay with that.
Yeah, I just think that who's the person who's shutting it off and moving locations? That just seems risky. Turning it back on. You don't want to be that guy who destroys it.
No, finally blue.
Yeah. So next up, what is the largest single bet ever made? So the largest, and of course here, because a lot of gambling and stuff is confidential and everything, people don't publicly say, but there is at least for what it's worth, the largest publicly known one that's been well documented was placed by one William Lee Bergstrom. So he was known as the Phantom Gambler because his identity was secret until he died. So in September of 1980, Bergstrom, he strode into the Binion's Horseshoe Casino in Vegas. He's carrying $770,000, which is about $2.6 million today, in cash in a suitcase. And I wanted to do an aside here, because people in the comments on that video and people in the comments on the George Clooney one, where George Clooney gave $1 million in cash to a bunch of his friends each in a suitcase. A lot of commenters were like, that's not possible. You can't fit $1 million in cash in a suitcase.
Oh, yeah, you can. $1 million fits in like a carrier bag.
Yeah, so here's one of the commenters, if you want to read about that.
Anybody who believes this is either believes what? Oh, the cash in the suitcase. 1, never seen $1 million in cash. 2, never seen a briefcase. In the words of Frank Sinatra, show me how to put $1 million in a briefcase, and I'll give you the $1 million fucking dollars. I don't believe Frank Sinatra probably said that. That sounds like
no, I don't think so.
I'm like, that sounds
something
like BS. But also,
like someone just
anyone who has seen $1 million, it's a small pile of money. Think about how much $10,000 is like what? Centimeter thick, half an inch, 3/4 of an inch. $100 bill is really large.
Lucky for you, I was kind of tired of all the comments, so I did the math, and yes, you can easily fit it in a standard size briefcase, let alone like if you have an oversized briefcase and stuff. So you got $10,000 bills. How much is that? That's a stack of bills about 43 inches tall, based on the thickness of the U.S. bill, which you can just go Google and look up. I didn't write it here, but I had it in the math. So anyways, you have that. So what is that? So you have a typical briefcase, which I also looked up, is a standard size is 16 by 11 by 5 inches of space. So that means you can do 2 rows with about 7 columns of these bills. If you do the math, so 14 stacks, 5 inches tall. But that's what you can fit in the maximum. Like the maximum you can do 14 stacks, 5 inches tall of these bills. But you only need about 8.5 stacks, 5 inches tall to make $1 million. So you can actually put quite a bit more than $1 million in there.
How many stacks was it? So 14, and you only need 8 to 9.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, you can easily fit it in a normal briefcase with plenty of room for all of your other money.
Plenty of space. Yeah, quite a bit. You have quite a bit left over. I should have done the math on how much was the maximum you could put in there of $100 bills, but oh well. So yes,
well, it's going to be what, about 1.5 million?
Yeah, ish, somewhere around there. So yeah, going back to Bergstrom,
14, roughly.
Yeah. $770,000 he had in a suitcase or a briefcase, and so he walks over to the craps table. He says he wants to bet it all on one throw of the dice right there, and then of course that had to get approved by the casino owner to say if he could actually make that bet. So Ted Binion, he went ahead and decided to let him do it because they did that particular casino at the time had the reputation of they'd take any bet if you wanted to do it, like any size. So he went ahead and honored that. And so Bergstrom, he takes the chips, he goes, throws the dice, walks back, and he wins. He totally won that throw, and then he just casually, and this was the thing, is that the witnesses were just like, he didn't even like act like he was excited. He was just like, whatever, walked back, took his cash, and then the casino owner walked to.
Do we know what his role was? Was he like, yeah, I'm going to roll it and get a 5, or was it like 1 to 3 I win, 3 to 6 I lose? Or
no,
4 to 6 I lose.
No, that doesn't seem to have been anybody bothered to write it down how much. But he did. It is noted he had a second briefcase that he brought with him, presumably just so in case he would win and it didn't all fit. So yeah, he was at least concerned with whatever the odds the return was of it all fitting. So anyways, so the casino owner, Ted Binion, he walks him back to his car. He escorts him, just for a little security, and he said he just tossed it in the back seat and drove off like casual, like no, whatever. It did nothing.
Look, he's from the future. He's definitely or he's got some sort of, magical way of knowing. He's just so confident walking in there with the briefcase, the extra briefcase, ready to collect his money, and he's just going in there fast, like he's been sent from the future, and he needs to invent some sort of machine in the past to save the future, but he needs to get money to build this machine. This is how this part of the plot.
Yeah. You'd think, because not only that, he comes back again. I think it was, 4 years later? So he comes back. At this time, again, no one knew who he was, so he got the nickname the Phantom Gambler and the Suitcase Man, and it was kind of this story that went around because it was just amazing, and just how cool he was, like winning it, like whatever, who cares. So 4 years later, 1984, he comes back again, same exact casino. He goes in, and this time he brings $538,000 with him, which, if you adjust for inflation, is $1.3 million today. So it was a lesser bet, but it was still quite large.
His machine's almost complete. And again, it just needs some extra money. To finish it.
Single throw the dice, and he once again he wins, and once again he just goes and cashes out. But this time, a few months later, he comes back again, and this time he bets $1 million, which now this is the new top bet, $1 million in cash. He throws it, he loses, and once again doesn't really react, like just whatever, and then he just goes. This time at least he did go eat an enchilada before leaving. And then left. And then sadly, a few months after that, he killed himself. and this is where his actual identity gets discovered because, so initially it was reported that he killed himself because of these gambling losses, but it turns out, no, he was actually independently wealthy, various real estate investments, so he didn't actually need this money, which is maybe how he was so calm about the whole thing. It turns out
it's very specific amounts to be gambling, like $538,000.
Yeah, it's weird.
It feels like he was having apparently all your money. You know, it feels like if you've got that such a random figure, it's like, okay, it's not like you're mad rich and you're just like $500,000.
It's possible that maybe that's the cash on hand he had, but he had like lots of investments or something. Maybe that was like that's actual cash he had. Yeah. So either way, so it turns out he was actually having relationship problems with he was having a relationship with a younger guy who left him, that they used to travel around the world and stuff. And that's kind of what he did. And he just, did real estate that, funded everything. And so, he was depressed about that. And that seems to be why. And then, of course, people then, what was he doing with these gambling? He didn't need the money. Like, what was he doing? And his brother, at least, for whatever it's worth, is hypothesizing that he just wanted to be remembered for something before, and so this was because he actually did on his in his will, he requested that he identified himself as the Phantom Gambler and put the stuff and who bet the stuff, and then sure enough it was him. What he specifically said in his will was he wanted to identify as the
Phantom Gambler of the Horseshoe, who bet $1 million on November the 16th, 1984.
So it's interesting that he wants to, only identify the one that he lost. He didn't even mention the others. But either way, so that's the largest that we could find anyway of largest documented bet. I'm sure there's been ones that people, private ones. But there is one bet that I just thought was really interesting, so we threw it in.
Wait, hang on a sec.
Kerry Packer.
So that's the largest documented bet?
Yeah, single bet.
Not just
one.
Story.
I mean, obviously, like this one, like we're going to get into this Kerry Packer. I mean, at one point he won $26 million in one night, so he bets large, but not on a single bet. Like just one.
This is just not publicized. There are definitely people out there who've made bets bigger than $1 million on like a sports game or anything. Because I mean, if you're worth like $10 billion, $1 million is absolutely nothing to you. I think the thing that will get it, though, is that the casino itself or the gambling, whoever you're contacting, the bookie, they have to be like, well, we could lose this. And so do we want to pony up on a single bet $1 million or $10 million? Even though the billionaire, it's maybe nothing. But to them, it's like, oof, if we lose this. That's true. That's a good point. What about billionaire to billionaire? Like, I'm sure they don't do it, but like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
It'd be like, hey, Warren, I bet you 500 mil.
Yeah, totally. I could see them doing it for like a charity thing or something. That could be actually a really good.
Hang on, Warren Buffett had a bet. He bet some guy, I think it was $1 million or something like this, that he wouldn't be able to outperform, was it the S&P 500 over 20 years or something? And the guy was like a stockbroker or whatever, and he was like, yeah, I'll take you up on that. I can do it. And Warren won the bet and it went to charity, but I can't remember exactly how much it was, but I'm pretty sure it was over $1 million. Yeah. That would count.
Oh, really? That would count. I didn't come across that. I've read the snowball effect. Is it in there? I might have just forgotten.
I've also read it. I don't remember. That's a long book, so I'd be surprised if it wasn't in there. But
that's a good book if people are looking for a good read.
What would I search? Warren Buffett's stock market bet. But then there's going to be coming up with so much things that he bets on. Oh no, here we go. Warren Buffett's bet with the hedge funds. Oh yeah, it was $1 million bet. In 2008, this is from Investopedia.
So it ties him.
There you go. In 2008, Warren Buffett
Well, wait,
issued...
2008? Okay.
Yeah.
That's still, Bergstrom still beats him by inflation by quite a bit. In that one, because it was 1984.
You've got to adjust for inflation, otherwise it's not fair.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just finish up if you're interested. He issued a challenge to the hedge fund industry in which he charged exorbitant fees for funds' performances that aren't justified. A company called Protégé Partners accepted, and they had $1 million bet. Buffett won, and that's kind of it. The S&P index fund outperformed what the hand-picked portfolio of this big hedge fund could do. So it's like, remember, folks, just put your money in index funds.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so we're going to talk about, though, Kerry Packer, because this bet wasn't consummated, I guess. But he has the largest proposed bet, assuming it's a true story, which it seems there's enough sort of first-hand accounts that say it happened. So
I remember this one from the episode. This guy's such a legend.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I cut out a lot of his legendary things in this, but he was the guy, like I said, he would call the casinos up beforehand to say how much do you have on hand, because he wanted to be able to gamble it. And obviously sometimes he would lose like many millions in a night, and other times like he won 26 million in a single evening. So I think he got banned from that casino. Yeah, MGM Grand banned him after that one. And then other casinos, in a single night. That stings. And so, he actually put the Aspinalls in London out of business, or contributed to their bankruptcy.
I remember this in the episode. It's kind of, I thought that was just something that happened in movies. Or that episode of Star Trek The Next Generation where they have to escape the Royale by bankrupting it, and Data crushes the dice so that they keep winning money.
Yeah. Yeah, and you don't think about it. It seems like, the casino has infinite money, but no, they have their limits, and it's just most people don't ever, and they usually win, so it's fine. But not when. Yeah, but when you talk about like these sorts of like huge bets that someone like him can make, then it can very quickly, even though you have the edge and the odds in the short term, can go against you pretty quick. So, but he didn't, he was a billionaire, so he didn't quite care. So the story, the proposed bet on hand. So he was at the the Bellagio, and he was at a high stakes gambling, a little poker, I believe it was. Nope, it just says high stakes gambling. So,
it's my
they get approached.
Type of gambling.
Yeah, I assume it's
not poker, not blackjack, just high stakes.
Well, because what else? I mean, you got a table, and of people playing, and that other people can join in quite easily, and I don't know.
Blackjack, no?
What else?
I would assume blackjack, but
it could. But I don't know. I feel like I don't know. Whatever it was. So Texas oil tycoon comes up and wants to join the table. And Packer says, no, you can't join us. And so then he gets mad, the Texans guy. He gets mad. So then he boasts he's worth $100 million. So, they're going to let him join. And then Packer, he apparently, from the accounts, looks at the Texan dead in the eye and says...
sorry, I was trying to look up what game he was playing. Well, you tell me what he says while I try and find where we are in the notes.
If you really want to gamble, I'll flip you for it.
Oh yeah, for his whole net worth. Amazing.
Yeah, for $100 million flip. The Texan didn't have the stomach for it because, that's his entire fortune. So yeah,
that's so crazy.
That was the largest proposed bet we could find. And I mean, that's got to be, I can't imagine anyone ever proposing a bet for more than $100 million.
No.
Seriously proposing it. Yeah. I mean, it would have stung for Packer, but he's a billionaire, and
he'd have figured it out. The other
it wouldn't have like a long-term damage. It just would have been like, oof, I'm going to have to shuffle sell some companies or
that guy,
something.
That would be absolute balls of steel, just being like, you're on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be intense.
Mm-hmm. That account came from, among others, the Mirage Resort CEO Bobby Baldwin claims to have witnessed the exchange that night. So, in any event, so whatever. It wasn't the real bet, the real winner, but I just thought it was an interesting little anecdote. So,
I can't find what game he was playing, by the way. I just did a quick Google search. I was quite keen to know, but don't know.
Yeah, is he still
alive?
Doesn't
really matter.
I don't remember. I think he's dead now.
Packer.
Yeah.
What was his first name?
Gregory, I believe.
He is still alive.
Really?
Nope. There's another person called Greg Packer who is.
Oh no. Yeah, I know who the Greg Packer is.
Who we've also done a video about.
Yeah, no, I know exactly. Maybe he might not even be Gregory. I might just be thinking of Gregory Packer because of that guy. That's the guy who tries to just get in every picture and news thing, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Everyman?
No, he's dead. He's Kerry Packer.
Kerry Packer. There we go. Yeah.
Oh, he died 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah. He was a colorful character, though. He had, apparently also a jerk, but he had some interesting...
Yeah, no, that off flip for it is kind of a jerk move, but also absolutely
that's kind of par for the course for him there with So we had another one where he wanted to tip that waitress $80,000 or something, but she was no, because then we have to, I have to split it with everyone if you tip. So you're not really giving me 80 grand, which was his intent. So he then demanded that the owner fire her, and then he gave her the 80 grand, and then he demanded that they rehire her right after.
He's like, can do whatever he wants. Yes, Mr. Pakistan.
Yeah. And he also had, there was one of them, I can't remember what the ambulance crew who he had like a heart attack or something, and the one that escorted, I think it was like he gave them each like $1 million or something just for
good lord
coming and getting him. Yeah, like stuff like that. So he was also a jerk apparently though, but also kind of a colorful anyway, interesting guy. So next quick fact. So everyone's heard of the term like nymphomania, right?
Sure.
But there's actually a male counterpart to the term that most people don't know. It's satyr.
Oh, I didn't see before we did this. I always thought it was for nymphomania applied to men and women. But
yeah, I would have said the same, but apparently not. So satyriasis, which is, here's the definition. You can read it.
I got it now. I'm at my right place in the notes. Neurotic condition in men in which the symptoms are a compulsion to have sexual intercourse with as many women as possible and an inability to have lasting relationships with them.
That second part is really the important caveat, because I feel like the first part really describes like a huge percentage of men, like most, and the inability to have lasting relationships is that's probably the.
I feel like there should be a picture of James Bond in this next, in the dictionary.
Yeah. So the nymphomania, anyways, from the Greek nymph meaning bride and mania, of course, madness, and then the satyriasis is from the Greek satyr, which just is a lustful woodland deity. So they sort of like a horse, like goat, like a horse-like creature with also goat features. So yeah,
weird.
Yeah. So speaking of ancient Greek, this one was also one of my favorites from this whole episode. I just kind of picked some of my favorite stories we've covered the last month. So this one was the ancient Greek, the Archaeon of Phygalia. How about Phygalia?
Sure.
Whatever.
Yeah, looks great.
So,
sounds great. Well done.
He was a practitioner of pancration, which is sort of like a precursor to modern mixed martial arts, and it was sort of the pinnacle of the Olympics basically at the time, the most popular sport that everyone liked. So it's kind of a mix of boxing and wrestling, and the rules for this sport are basically that there almost are no rules except for you can't bite, so you can't do that. You can't gouge out an opponent's eyes, and you can't specifically try to aim for the groin. Like you can accidentally.
And you can't talk about Pancration Club.
yeah, pretty much. But pretty much everything else was kind of allowed, except for in Sparta, everything was allowed. There was literally no rules other than, of course, they're hand to hand, not using weapons or whatever. And this is also why Sparta was largely banned from the Olympics in this event, because they didn't have the rules. Anything else, punch, kick, whatever. So one guy, even his Leontiskos of Messene, his primary tactic was to break people's fingers. And so that was like his thing to win. Yeah. And so
why?
Archaeon, he was a 2-time winner in the Olympics. So he'd won the last 2 of pancration, and he was looking for his 3-peat in the 564 BC games. And so he entered the games, as you might expect, the firm favorite. But during his final bout, so this is the championship round, he's going against, he ends up getting his opponent, catches him, and he's got like a vice chokehold on him. Like he's just, and it looks like he's finally going to get beat. So what happens next is, the exact details vary depending on which, account you want to read. But so Greek sophist Philostratus says,
Accordingly, the antagonist of Archaeon, having already clinched him around the middle, thought to kill him. Already he had wound his forearm about the other's throat to shut off the breathing, while pressing his legs on the groins and winding his feet one inside each knee of his adversary. He forestalled Archaeon's resistance by choking him till the sleep of death, thus induced, began to creep over his senses. But in relaxing the tension of his legs, he failed to forestall the scheme of Archaeon, for the latter kicked back, and with the sole of his right foot, as the result of which his right side was imperiled, since now his knee was hanging unsupported. Then with his groin he holds his adversary tight till he can no longer resist, and throwing his weight down toward the left, while he locks the latter's foot tightly inside his own knee. By this violent outward thrust, he wrenches the ankle from its socket. That sounds pretty brutal. I didn't even know you could get your ankle out of its socket. I didn't know that was a dislocation that you could do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and apparently super painful, as we'll get into in a second. But so the exact details
there's all sorts of weird bones down there. Like I don't know what's in my foot,
and tendons
but it's weird.
and ligaments and just that's not going to be. Especially back then, when what are they going to do if you're tearing all these things?
Chop it off.
Yeah. So
Burn
the exact details of sort of how they got to that point vary a little bit, but the end point everyone seems to agree on is this ankle thing and everything, getting the foot injury. So the kick that did this to his foot caused his opponent to collapse in agony, and he went ahead and gave up. That's kind of how you win this one. And so the officials go over to Archaeon and they go to congratulate him on his victory, and they find out, no, he's dead. Like he's just laying there dead, having broken his neck. And so it's generally thought, of course, when the guy had him in the chokehold and then he kicks his foot, and then he probably just like jerked and like popped his neck or whatever. And so this apparently was what happened. So he's laying there, but because of the rules of the sport, the other guy gave up. It didn't matter that Archaeon was dead at the time he gave up. So Archaeon was still the victor. Yeah, he won even though he was dead at the time that his opponent gave up. So, I mean, probably not the way he wanted to win, but on the plus side for him, over 2,000 years later, we're still talking about his match, like his final match of his career, whereas nobody knows the name of his opponent. That was never.
And no one would ever remember him if that had never happened.
Yeah, if he had just won the normal way, it would be like whatever. Yeah.
This always makes me a bit like, that.
Yeah.
You always bring this up when we do podcasts, when something from like 1850, and it's the only record of this guy. In the entire of history, and it's just something that he was caught urinating in public or something like this, and that's the only thing anyone will ever remember about him.
The guy, when we were doing that one on the how you could divorce your husband in court by just showing he was impotent or whatever, and so women would do that, and there was that one guy who had they had the prostitutes examine him, and then they gave like a description of his penis that was just like it was really brutal. Like it was like I don't even remember, but it was just like.
It was so small, I wasn't even sure it was there.
Yeah, it was actually that. And it was purple, like malformed and tiny, and like all this, and just went into this great detail. And this is the only account of this guy. This whole, he was probably a nice guy, and that's all history ever remembers of him. And stuff like that. There was another one where there was this woman who made this really clever contraption she could like pee and poop into outside of her house, and it would like a thing that would go out the window.
I remember that one well.
Yeah, that was a pretty fun one. Yeah, there's tons of these like this. There's just like, this human being, but that's all anyone remembers. But they get remembered, I guess. That's something. So that's the end of that story. So now, quick fact: at 12 years old, Simon Cowell, Simon Cowell, he hijacked a bus. On accident. So he stated about this specific event.
We had these pea guns, and I was living in England in a place called Radlett, and I wanted to go to Watford, which was 10 miles away. So I got on a bus, and as a joke, it was a joke, I put the gun to the driver's head, and I said, "Take me to Watford." And I remember thinking, God, he's really playing the part here, because we're not stopping. Of course, the police were waiting for him at his destination. Little came of it after the police realised they were dealing with kids with toy guns. However, Cal said, my mum and dad came in, and my mum was actually worse than the police. She was furious with me. So he could have got in trouble for this. The age of like criminal responsibility in the UK is 10. So on under 10, you can't commit a crime. Over 10, you can commit crimes. So committed a crime. But he's 12.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think he's quite realising the consequences of his actions.
Yeah, clearly.
Good story, though, for that bus driver.
No, yeah, and then later, obviously the bus driver didn't probably remember the name of the kid ever, but, to become
Maybe
Simon
he's
Cowell.
Watching this right now, and he's like, oh my God, that was Simon Cowell?
Yeah, totally.
Finally.
Yeah, he was a dick back then, too.
It's a great story.
Yeah. So next up, do blind people actually hear better than sighted people, or is this just a Hollywood myth? And I just thought this one was super interesting as well. So the first part is not interesting at all because the answer is no, not really. But there is a caveat that makes it really interesting in a bit. So no, there doesn't appear to be any like significant changes to the brain, or obviously, clearly the eardrum doesn't get more sensitive or anything like that. But Of course, blind people often seem to get better, and this is just because they pay attention and they practice like crazy.
I've seen Daredevil. He just taps that stick against like the ground or whatever, and then he gets this echoed sonar vision in his brain or whatever. Seems completely realistic.
Yeah, that echolocation though is something. I mean, not to that extent, but that blind people often master pretty well. And it turns out though, it doesn't actually take that much for a sighted person to do the same. And there actually was a study which I listed somewhere, a summary of research investigating echolocation abilities of blind and sighted humans in 2014, which showed that sighted people could get just as good at this with just a little bit of practice, this echolocation thing. So that's really just all that's, and also of course because they're blind, it turns out when your eyes are open, of course you're and you can see your brain actually dominates that sense, sort of dominates, and actually you can look at brain scans that actually suppresses like your hearing and stuff, which is why if you've ever been driving and you're trying to concentrate really hard on what you're seeing, you'll turn down the radio to see better. And you actually are like, and that's sort of like further. So your brain suppresses the hearing, but it's still there. It's still processing it. And so you turn down the radio to get rid of that extra distraction.
It's
and
just like, it's just distraction. It's like, okay, I really got to concentrate. Turn down the radio.
The brain, and then the
get
brain
off the
can
phone.
focus.
Stop snacking.
Yeah, exactly. So this is this sort of thing. It is really just comes down to that. Why so many blind people seem to have better hearing and all that. But there is a caveat to this, which is quite interesting. It turns out if you're young enough, but like if you're just born blind or whatever, there is actually you will actually develop a superior hearing with a caveat as well. And so it turns out that the part of your brain that processes, a certain part of your brain, I should say, that processes visual things, which so it does give you a verifiably superior hearing in some ways. And so why? So the leading hypothesis is just, of course, that your brain is a lot more malleable at that point to it's got all these connections, particularly around the senses and stuff. And a lot of these over time, as you learn, as your brain learns to process things, it sort of severs or weakens these connections between them. And then in these cases, it's just, strengthening some of them between the auditory and visual cortexes and just using it for something else because it's not being used. It's just sitting there. So, but while there is verifiably better hearing in these people who are blind young enough, it turns out that there is actually one drawback that they can't do as well. So they can tell that when you're looking at directions of sound, like if you're a sighted person, you close your eyes and you hear a sound and then you point to where the sound is. So they can point to it better than on the horizontal plane can point to it better than a sighted person. However, on the vertical plane, they cannot. The sighted person will or the people who are blinded later in life can do it better on the vertical. So they can point the direction on the horizontal plane, but they can't the up and down. They can't point to exactly as accurately. And it's not really clear why they have superior hearing in these other ways, but that seems to cause them problems.
Okay, let me guess on this one. Tell me what you think. Like, if I'm on the street and I hear a car, you can very easily be like, it's behind me, maybe, there. And, you can point to your 4 o'clock or whatever. But when you hear a plane in the sky, it's harder to identify where the plane is, like, or an object that's coming by above you. It's hard. You often look up and you're like, there it is. It takes you a few moments to place it. So I'd guess maybe we're as humans, we're worse at this anyway, right? We're worse at judging things above us for whatever reason. And then as a sighted person, we've had more experience being, looking up at the sky and seeing where a plane is and compensating for our lack of ability to do that. So the blind people who haven't had the learned, like on the horizontal plane, the car's at your 4 o'clock, easy. For whatever reason, we're good at that. But then as sighted people, we've learned about identifying planes in the sky or what sounds in the sky and using our vision to compensate for that. And blind people haven't had that experience. So that makes sense. And I would assume also, like you say, the reason why it's maybe harder is one, because it's not as practiced because most of the sounds come from more horizontal, but also the way your ears are positioned, right? They're level. And so you're not getting that differential. Like maybe if you turned your head, like you could do it a little better or something like that. And then, I reckon if you did, if you had an ear on the bottom and an ear on the top, you'd be better at identifying those vertical sounds. For sure. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, totally. So you're probably exactly right. It's just harder. But then of course it's like why, in practice, I guess. But
yeah, so that's the caveat with their better hearing. They don't have better for that. But if you're blinded later in life, you don't get any of this. Your brain doesn't co-opt that space because it's already it's already learned to use it for something else. And this is actually, I didn't put it in the notes here, but this is a thing with deaf people who get the cochlear implants. Sometimes what can happen is that their brain has already co-opted some of this, the same type of thing, but in reverse, that would normally be used for hearing is used for vision. But then when they can hear with the cochlear implants, now the brain doesn't know what to do with that. So it's already rewired itself, and it can't easily rewire itself back. And this is a ongoing area of research that I had tried to get it to train itself back, because some people with the cochlear implants, it just doesn't really work because their brain can't like process what's coming in properly, and so they can hear, but they can't process the sounds basically because that part of the brain's been sort of co-opted for something else, and so it's kind of the reverse of this type of thing. And it's in this case they want to figure out can we undo that somehow so that they can take advantage of these.
Our brains are
like
crazy,
a lot of people
right?
Yeah.
Brains are crazy.
Yeah, totally. So that's that section. And speaking of amazing abilities, this one is crazy from just like an evolutionary perspective. It's just like, how? So horned lizards, they can squirt a directed stream of their own blood from the corners of their eyes at predators. And this is a response to predators. They will squirt their blood at the predators about 5 feet away, as much as 5 feet away. These little lizards can just like a little squirt gun of their blood.
I feel like this is an error because you'd be like, tasty.
Yeah.
I want more of that blood.
Right? You think that would be the response, but it's actually quite the opposite. And this is exactly why they're doing it, because it turns out a lot of the predators that, like cats and dogs and quite a few others that would hunt them normally, turns out their blood tastes awful to them. These animals do not like the taste of their blood.
Sounds like, don't eat me, I'm going to taste bad.
Yeah, here's the taste of my blood. I taste bad, so go away. But yeah, so how do they actually accomplish this? So they actually have the ability to severely restrict blood flow to away from their head, and this causes just the blood pressure to build up to a point where it bursts certain blood vessels near their eyes, and then it just squirts the blood out, which sounds really painful, but that's their response to the predators. It's like, here, I taste awful, go away. But yeah, that's kind of crazy, like how this double thing to develop, like bad tasting blood for one, which is good, but then they have to have a mechanism to, like, here, I taste bad before you actually bite into me. Yeah, they're kind of crazy.
Like, yeah, it sounds pretty painful, but like most of it, a lot of our defense mechanisms are pretty painful. Punching someone in the face is going to be pretty painful, but it's less painful than getting punched in the face.
Yeah. So speaking of getting punched in the face, Abraham Lincoln, the wrestling president. So 6'4" tall, which is crazy, 1.93 meters. He was quite a tall guy. 210 pounds, around 95 kilograms was around what he weighed.
I appreciate these metric things. Thank you.
Yeah. So he was quite lean, obviously skinny, but he was a big guy and quite toned, quite muscular. And also, one of his contemporaries noted he was unnaturally strong. So just also for his, forget about his size.
Abe Lincoln was ripped.
Yeah, it seems like it. And it makes sense because, he a poor background, and he, axe in his hand at 8 or whatever to start, working for the family, just chopping things. And that's going to make you strong. And so he eventually got into wrestling. It's not really clear when, but it seems like he started around at a quite young age and actually started competing, in wrestling, little wrestling matches, according to Ronald C. White, author of A. Lincoln, a biography. Starting around 9 was when he did, and he did a lot of wrestling up to 21 and stuff. So, and also his uncle apparently was quite a good wrestler as well, so he might have just taught him the stuff. So we're going to talk about some of his more famous fights, which are quite interesting. So when he first moved from Indiana to New Salem, Illinois in his early 20s, so he was using, this is just a funny story. So he was unnaturally strong, just crazy. So he had a friend called Slicky Bill Green, and he bet him a fur hat that he could pick up an entire whiskey barrel and then drink a shot directly from the bunghole on the whiskey barrel.
Yeah.
And he apparently won that bet, according to Slicky Bill Green.
How big's a whiskey barrel? Is that like a beer barrel?
I don't know, but I assume like a keg or something. Like, it's heavy.
It's not something big.
You could. Yeah.
But I even have in my mind that a whiskey barrel's even bigger than a keg.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't think it would be
these
one of
things
those
are
giant
big.
ones. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't think it would be one of the giant ones. There's probably like different sizes. Because if it has they have to move it around, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Whiskey.
It's still pretty impressive,
barrel.
even if it's like just a regular beer barrel size.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like 80 kilograms.
Yeah. So he does this, and these sort of demonstrations of brute strength would get his employer, Denton Outfoot, bragging about him that Lincoln was not just the most intelligent man in the region, but also the strongest. And so then he started, at this time, I mean, it's still like we covered in that deadly hands video, like the deadly weapons, your hands. Like if you're known to be a tough guy, you're going to attract other guys who are going to want to test themselves against you.
I never thought about this, but we made this video and you're like, I mean, if you're famous for being like, if you're Bruce Lee and you're famous for kicking ass, people are going to get drunk in the bar that you're in.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to fight Bruce Lee. And as Bruce Lee, this must get really annoying.
Yeah. And that's what in that video, if people haven't watched it, we covered this is part of how that whole my hands are registered as deadly weapons thing. People would just start, like wrestlers and stuff and fighters would start carrying cards that said this. They're totally fake, but just so people would stop trying to fight them. Just like, I can't fight you because I'd get thrown in jail or whatever. So this was a thing that Lincoln had to deal with. But Lincoln actually seemed to really enjoy this, and I think when you always win, as he did, pretty much, except for one exception we'll get to, and also you live in an era where that's like, especially the class he came from was, I mean, this is your worth as a guy. It's like the like the Gaston on Beauty and the Beast. If you're the toughest guy, everyone loves you, kind of thing.
Hell yeah,
yeah. And so Lincoln seemed to enjoy this sort of thing. So. But one Jack Armstrong, who was known to be one of the toughest men in the regions, he wanted to test himself against this. He was also the leader of a gang called, I think it was the Clary's something gang.
Clary Grove Boys.
Yeah, Clary's Grove Boys. He was the leader of that gang.
Bad.
Yeah, so he wanted to fight Lincoln, so he goes to Lincoln and he challenges him to a wrestling match. So to see who's going to be superior.
Is wrestling just the old word for wrestling then?
Yes. Yeah, they called it wrestling.
Cool. Wrestling.
Lincoln, he talks about this in an upcoming quote. So he goes ahead and agrees, and then of course they arrange the time. They come, and the Clary's Grove boys come along and to watch the fight, and also a small crowd of just locals coming to see. I mean, what do they got nothing else to do? That's entertainment.
Pre-television. What are they going to do?
Yeah, exactly. This is entertainment. So Armstrong, as much as a reputation he had as being the toughest guy in the region, he wasn't even like in Lincoln's league apparently. I mean, Lincoln's got the huge advantage of just being giant with giant arms, so that's going to be his leverage and everything is going to be pretty awesome in this particular type of match anyway. Other things would not be awesome. Like weightlifting would probably not be good because his such long arms with the moment arm and everything, he would have to lift a lot more. But in any event, for this sort of sport, that's a great advantage. He at some point, Armstrong apparently saw he was going to lose quite easily, and so he tripped Lincoln, which was, I guess, an illegal move at the time. And so, apparently Lincoln wasn't too happy about this, and he jumped up, he picked him up, just literally picked him up in the air and then slammed him down on the ground as hard as he could.
Enough of this nonsense.
Yeah. So when he did this, though, the Clary's Grove boys didn't like their man, their leader, getting just manhandled like that. So Lincoln's aforementioned law partner there, John Stewart, or did we mention him? I think I might have skipped that part. But either way, John Stewart, his aforementioned law partner, then states,
when it was evident that Lincoln was getting the better of their champion, the whole band pitched in and gave Lincoln several blows. That's not fair. You can't just be like, he's losing, so let's all beat the crap out of him.
But it's totally like old, I don't know what it's called now, but the WWF, whatever it's called now, it's not called that. Wrestling, where it's all
WWE.
They're all scripted, and they do it where someone will tag in or someone for the audience.
Yeah, but that's fake. This is
like,
real. It's not nice.
Yeah, but it's still kind of the same type of thing. It's entertaining in a way to watch, I'm sure.
I'm sure, except where poor Abe Lincoln gets several blows. But they had no salutary effect on the strength of his legs. Lincoln, however, took all of this in perfect good humour, and by laughing and joking displayed such excellent disposition that he at once won their hearts and was invited to become one of the company. Wait, so they were beating him up, he was laughing at them, and then they were like, you're all right after all.
Yeah. So one of the guys, Royal Armstrong Clary, would state of all this.
He won us by bearing and boldness. Jack and Lincoln were the warmest friends from then on.
Yeah.
Apparently, yeah. That is how he won their hearts.
That seems to happen a lot, though. You see, like, I don't know, like in school, I don't know if you're like, guys will fight in like high school or whatever, right? And then they're just like best friends afterwards. And like, oh, I guess, you know.
Just needed to get out your system.
Yeah, just fight, and then we're good. But yeah, so
I feel that's more for movies, though. Does that actually happen in real life?
Oh, I've seen it with a few.
Yeah.
I've seen it with a few in high school, so yeah.
Huh. I don't know if I've ever seen that in real life. I don't know. I've never really fought anybody, so it's never happened to me.
Yeah. So,
I think there was. I think I went to a school there wasn't a lot of fighting.
Yeah. See, I lived in the middle of nowhere in like a town literally called Hunters. So it was more like this, like Lincoln style, white trash hill capital
gangs. The gangs of hunters.
Yeah. So, in any event,
it sounds a lot better than the Clary Street Boys.
So Lincoln, another well-known fight of his. This one, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of funny because it's a weird look on Lincoln. So anyways, so there's a family. They're getting married. They're having a double wedding. It's two brothers called Reuben and Charles Grigsby, and they're marrying sisters called Matilda and Elizabeth Hawkins. And so Lincoln's family, he didn't get invited to the wedding. So he thought this was a bit of a slight. So he made a sarcastic poem in which he accused the third Grigsby brother, William, of being gay in the poem. And that's just so juvenile. This is Lincoln.
What? I've written you this poem that insults you and calls you gay. Yeah. You put it in a poem? Why?
Yeah. I know, right? So naturally, William, he's a proper vagina-loving man. So he challenges Lincoln to a fight. But Lincoln, now maybe he's feeling bad about the whole thing. Who knows? Or he just wants to insult William more. But he says, "No, I'm not going to fight you. You're not even in my class. Like, I will just wipe the floor with you. But instead, you can fight my stepbrother, John D. Johnston," which, that's kind of funny just here. Fight my stepbrother.
Wait, Abraham Lincoln's stepbrother?
Yeah. He's saying,
he was like,
no,
I'd kick your ass too easily, so my brother, who's weak, is going to fight you.
Yeah, which, I mean, is he trying to
pretty solid insults from old Abe here.
Yeah, and so, either way, Grigsby, he agrees. Yeah, and then he goes and fights, and he's right from the start, he's, beaten Johnston pretty good. He's got him in a painful hold, and Lincoln's not happy about this because, of course, he put his brother-in-law or stepbrother in this position, and so he barrels through the crowd and grabs Grigsby and then just picks him up and slams him to the ground off. So and actually the crowd were incensed by this apparently because it's kind of cheating in a lot of ways. And then Lincoln allegedly yelled,
"I'm the big buck of this lick. If any of you want to try it, come on and wet your horns."
Yeah, so whether he actually said this is a matter of contention or not, it's also been attributed to a couple of other fights that he did. But either way, it doesn't appear that anyone in the crowd wanted to fight him because he was, big and strong. And this is like a thing. There's so many stories like this. It seems so wildly out of character from what you think of Lincoln, but
it does.
But
it does.
Yeah, but in his youth, he did this, and so like another one. A pretty well documented one, 1832, he was running for office for the Illinois General Assembly. And the first public speech he ever made on this one was in Pappsville, and a fight broke out, and one of his supporters was getting beat up. So Lincoln steps off the podium, goes down, and according to witnesses, he grabbed the attacker and tossed him about a dozen feet through the air. That was the thing. So another one, 300 total fights or so is what's the estimated for Lincoln in his youth. And he apparently, supposedly, always won. And this includes Lincoln himself, claiming he only ever lost one fight against a man called Lorenzo Dow Thompson in 1832. So at the time, Lincoln was with the Illinois militia, and he was the leader of his company there that he represented. And naturally, because he was, the toughest guy in the region. And he was quite popular too. I don't know if just because of that reason or if he's because he's a really nice guy. But they tried to set up camp. His company tried to set up camp. A rival company says, no, this is our spot. And so, they exchange harsh words, and then they challenge one another they take each company's best man, and then whoever wins the wrestling match will get the spot. So Lincoln reportedly stated to one Professor Risden Moore in 1860,
"Gentlemen, I felt of Mr. Thompson, the Sinclair champion, and told my boys I could throw him and they could bet what they pleased. You see, I had never been thrown or dusted, as the phrase then was, and I believe Thompson said the same to the Sinclair boys, that they might bet their bottom dollar that he could down me. You may think a wrestle, or wrastle, as we called contests of skill and strength, was a small matter, but I tell you the whole army was out to see it. We took our holds, his choice first, a side hold. I think realized from his grip for the first time that he was a powerful man, and I have no easy job. The struggle was a severe one, but after many passes and efforts he threw me. My boys yelled out, 'A dog fool,' which meant then a drawn battle, but I told my boys it was fair, and then said to Thompson, 'Now it's your turn to go down,' as it was my hold then. Indian hug. We took our holds again, and after the fiercest struggle of the kind that I ever had, he threw me again, almost as easily at my hold as at his own. My men raised another protest, but I again told them it was a fair down. Why, gentlemen, that man could throw a grizzly bear."
Yeah, so, and Slicky Bill Green also added some details there, because he witnessed the fight, and he claimed that Thompson overcame Lincoln the second time by, to quote him, getting in the crotch lock on Mr. Lincoln. And then he also notes Lincoln was able to slide off the crotch lock. That was his words, not mine. And then Thompson managed to still grab him and throw him down quite easily. But so Lincoln, he gets older, and he didn't quite fight as much, but he did do one thing similar to Teddy Roosevelt. Why he wasn't like fighting people in the White House, unlike Teddy Roosevelt did. He did have like a test of strength that he liked to do. One of his staple tricks was to hold out a woodcutting axe and just hold it at arm's length, and then just hold it and see who could hold it longer. Just hold it straight out like that. And apparently he could do this for several minutes, which is that would be so, especially intense. With his super long arms. Oh my God. That's not easy. But yeah, he could basically apparently beat most people at this little test of strength. So, speaking of stretching out your arms, the last little quick fact of the day, and this one I just included because it's just kind of cute. And you can Google this. You can look at these images if people want to go look. So, famed entomologist Derek Ragg Morley, he studied ants for the better part of his life, including he actually 14 years old, and he actually published his first academic paper on ants at 16, and then that ended up being his career later. But he apparently says ants stretch just like humans when they wake up, and then they also yawn too, or at least look like they're yawning. And so yeah, you can go Google these pictures. They're quite cute. But yeah.
Okay, well, this was another episode of the Brain Food Show. Thank you very much. Oh, we've got a review. Do you want me to read that review? It's in the tiniest font I've ever seen.
Well, it's because the Apple doesn't let you copy and paste the text, Oh,
really?
So you have to. So I have to take screenshots. Yeah. Okay,
let me zoom in. Even if I zoom in on maximum, it's still quite small. But let's have a go. Thank you, JDub3388. Ooh, a 4-star review. Did you choose that on purpose?
No, just more because it was a recent. It was recent. I don't really read them because I think it's more interesting to hear them for the first time on.
Okay, well, let me enlighten you as to why this person thinks we only deserve 4 stars, like the weak podcast that we are. I mostly listen on Spotify, but I came here just to leave a review. I love learning new facts, and this is a great podcast for it. J-Dub, I'm wondering where that 5th star disappeared to then. I'm wondering why that's missing. Come on. The banter between the hosts keeps things interesting and makes sure that no 2 episodes are the same. My personal favorite episodes are the one on Teddy Roosevelt. If there was one thing I could... This is really long. If I could change, it would be the consistency of the uploads. That's right. When the podcast started, they said they may try making it a weekly or bi-weekly show. But as time progressed, it could be a month or 2 between episodes. I know the hosts are busy.
Only like once recently have we gone more than 1 month. There was a stretch there for a few months, I think, but after that, it's been like once a month. Yeah.
I know the hosts are busy, so I understand why there is great time between these shows, but the lack of a steady upload schedule is why I took away a star. Okay, that makes sense. I just want more from you guys, but I could have taken away half a star. If I could have taken away half a star instead, that's what I've done. Really do appreciate the effort that goes into the research, as well as someone who wrote someone who wrote a master's thesis on one topic. I know what it takes to get 60 pages of info. I couldn't imagine the effort put in for different topics every episode. I appreciate all the effort and keep it up. There we go. Yep. So get more regular and we'll earn that 5th star. Yeah. So that's the only one this week. Leave us a review for our review contest, all of that great stuff. And we'll be back definitely not bi-weekly or weekly, but probably monthly. And
for now. Working on it. I got a lot of new hires and we'll see if that pans out. Well,
cool. All right. Thank you everybody for listening, and we'll be back soon. Cheers.